Good morning. Hey, I thought I'd go ahead and do section 1.3. I am struggling right now with my handouts becoming over. When I send them over to SkyCan, they seem to be very blurry. I'm going to try and fix that this week, but today I'm going to have you just go ahead and deal with the 1.3 being just a little bit off. Also, if you're having problems getting into my classroom from SkyCan, I'd like you to email me and so that we can try and maybe solve some of those problems. Today I'm going to begin with just a review from section 1.2, and I'm going to do number 15. Now, the way the program will work, you may have this problem, and you may have one that looks a little similar to this. But this one is going to be a rational expression where we discussed that in section 1.2. And so in this one, we're going to have to multiply through times our least common denominator, which happens to be just the x minus 4. But before we even get started with this, I want you to look at the problem. And if I have a denominator where a variable is in the bottom, the value of 4 cannot be one of my solutions because that would make that 0 on the bottom. And anything that's being divided by 0 is undefined. And so I know before I even begin that the value of x cannot equal 4. So then I want to go ahead and solve by multiplying through times my least common denominator. That means I have to multiply every term times my least common denominator. So if I'm going to go ahead and write that up above on each one, because I'm going to imagine I'm multiplying these each time. Well, when I have x minus 4 over x minus 4 from my first term, they cancel out, and I'm left with just 4. So I'm going to bring down the 4. But then I have 2 times x minus 4, nothing canceled, so I'm going to go ahead and just write that as 2 times 4. Plus, now in the third term, I'm going to cancel those out. They're both on numerator and denominator. I'm left with just x. So my next thing I need to do is distribute my 2 into my parentheses. So I have 2 times x, which is 2x, and I have 2 times 4, which is a minus 8. Plus x, and then still equals 4. My next step would be to go ahead and combine the like terms on this right-hand side because I have a 2x and I'm going to do the same since it's on the same side of my equal sign. I'm just going to simplify and add and combine like terms. So 2x plus x would give me 3x. I'm going to go ahead and do minus 8 is equal to 4. And then to finish, I'm going to have to go ahead and remove my constant. And so I'm going to have to go from one side of the equation to the other. So that means I need to do the opposite. So if it's a minus 8, I'm going to add 8. So I have 4 plus 8, which is 12, is equal to 3x. And now to solve for x, I want to do the opposite of multiplying by 3. So I'm going to divide by 3. And so then I have the value of x is equal to 4. And so right now, a lot of kids just stop there. They'll circle that and move on. But remember from our discussion earlier, x cannot equal 4. So this is an example of an extraneous solution. And so the correct answer is that it's actually a no solution. Because when we solved it, we end up with x equals 4. But it's not part of it cannot be part of my domain. It can't be part of my solution. So it's a no solution. And you'll also see it sometimes with a circle with a line through it called null set. Now, before we start, I wanted to review just when I have two equations with two unknowns, there's a couple of ways that you can solve these equations. Like for instance, if I have 2x minus 4 equals 8 and x minus y is equal to 6. Now, one option can be always graphing. I mean, I could graph because I know this is a line and this one's a line, and where they intersect would be my solution. That works great when the solution is kind of a whole number, but it could get kind of wanky when it's maybe a fraction or a decimal. So the other two methods that you could use would be the substitution or what I call elimination. Now, in the books, some books, they're going to call it addition, and where you're adding the opposite. So I'm going to start off on this one. I'm just going to go ahead and practice the substitution because I'm going to do one more example, and then we're going to do that one with elimination or addition. So I'm going to start with one of my equations, and I'm going to need to go ahead and solve for one of my variables. Well, the second one already has a leading coefficient of 1, 1. So I'm going to take the second equation, x minus y is equal to 6, and I'm going to add y to both sides. So x is going to equal then 6 plus y, or y plus 6. Now my second part is 2 times x minus 4y is equal to 8. Now wherever I see the x, then I can replace it with the 6 plus y. So I'm going to go ahead and go 2 times 6 plus y minus 4y is equal to 8. And then I'm going to distribute. So I have 12 plus 2y minus 4y is equal to 8, and I'm going to come right up here on the next step. So in this case, I'm going to end up with then 12 minus 2y, because 2 minus 4y is negative 2, is equal to 8. And I'm going to move my 12 to the other side. So minus 12, so I have a negative 2y is equal to a negative 4. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So y is going to equal 2. Then I'm going to go ahead and substitute it back into one of my equations, and I can go in either one. So let's take the one that I already had to solve for x. So x is going to equal 6 plus y, which is now 2. So x is going to equal 8. And so my solution set is going to be when x is equal to 8, I'm going to have then y is going to equal then 2. Now, it should work out if I substitute those back into the equations, I should get true statements on both of them. Now, the second problem that I wanted to kind of practice is one that has values. And I always like to use coins, okay, because coins have a value, and so I can represent, I just went ahead and picked dimes and nickels to make it super easy to show you this example. But let's say that I was given, in this case I have a certain number. In this case, I'm going to find out the number of dimes and the number of nickels. But a lot of times in your problems, you're not going to get the stack. So I can't just count. But they're going to say that I have 12 coins. I have 12 coins that are dimes and nickels that have a value then of $1. So in this case, if I look at my coins, every coin, if I were to add up all the coins, if I say x is equal to my dimes, maybe I should say the number of dimes, and y is going to equal the number of nickels, then I know that since I have 12 coins, if I were to add up the x and the y, then that's going to give me something that looks like an equation. So I have then x plus y, my dimes and my nickels would have to equal then the 12 that I have. Now, their second equation is a value equation. So for every dime that I have, it's worth 10 cents. So if I have X number of dimes, then I would have then a value of 10 times X. If I have a nickel that's worth 5 cents, then I'm going to add then 5 times Y. And then that's going to equal my total value. Now, here's what I want you to think about. If I used cents here and cents here, then I've got to also change my dollar into cents. And so that's why I'm going to change and not use $1, but I'm going to actually use 100 because I want it in cents. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show this with my elimination or addition method. And so when I do that, that means I need to take one of my equations and I need to multiply it by something that when I add it to the other one, one of my variables cancels out. So in this case, if I have a 10 and a 5 here, I want to multiply this by either a negative 10 or a negative 5 and then add it to my second equation. So let's go ahead and just pick that I'm going to multiply this times a negative 5. Okay, so if I do that, and then I'm going to bring it right down below, so I'm going to end up with a minus 5x minus 5y, and then I'm going to take 12 times 5, which I'm going to get as a negative 60. Now, my two equations, I changed this one, so it replaced here. I just need to add my equations. So 10x minus 5x would be 5x. My y's cancel out, and I'm equal to 60, or 100 minus 60, which is going to be 40. And then I'm going to solve by dividing both sides by 5. I jumped ahead. I knew it was going to be 8. I knew it was going to be 8. So x is going to be then 40 divided by 5, or 8. So if x is equal to 8, then I can come back into my other equation. Remember, it was x plus y is equal to 12. I have 12 values. So if x is equal to 8, I'd have 8 plus y is equal to 12. And y then is going to equal 12 minus 8, which is going to be 4. And that works out right for my coins. I have 4 nickels. And I have then 8 dimes. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to have different equations. So the first one, if you look, and again, some of the solutions for solving the steps is that we're going to look to understand the problem. We're going to read the problem. Sometimes you have to, I like to underline different major parts. And then I'm going to try and express my parts of my unknown quantities for either x or y, or it can be a variable. It doesn't have to be x and y. It could be different variables. And then I'm going to go ahead and write an equation for that model, and then solve the equation, and then also check. So it says you invested $17,000 into 2 accounts, paying 5% and 9% of annual interest, respectively. If the total interest earned was going to be $1,130, how much was invested in each rate? Now, so in your equation, you're going to have, again, you're going to invest $17,000. Both of those accounts are going to be 5% and 9%, and then you're going to have an interest rate of the $1,130. Your question is asking how much are you going to invest in each rate. Now, since I have 2 rates, I'm going to let x equal the amount of 5% that I invest in 5%. Then I'm going to let my y equal the amount, and that's AMT, of 9%. I've never been known to have great handwriting, so I'll try and tell you what I'm writing. So if I have a total amount of $17,000 that I'm investing, and I have 2 different accounts that I'm putting it in, and we're going to call them X and Y, that means that X plus Y has to equal $17,000. Now, to calculate interest rate, you're going to take the amount that you invest times the interest rate. All right, and then again, since it's annual, you know they're going to multiply it times 1 from that interest rate. The interest equals PRT. So T is going to be 1. But in this case, I'm going to I need to change my 5% into a decimal so that I can utilize it. So 5% should be 0.05 by moving over my decimal, and 9% would be 0.09. Now, in order to find out the amount that I earn from investing it at 5%, then I'm going to take my amount times 5%. So this is the second equation. So I'm going to have 0.05 times my x value. But then I'm also going to have 0.09 times my y value, and that's going to give me my total amount that I earn from investing. So it would be $130. Now, to simplify this equation, remember I multiply both sides by any number, and I would almost rather do that and not so I don't have any fractions or decimals. To me, I think it's just a little easier, and that would be by multiplying everything times 100 or moving my decimal over 2 places. So I'm going to change this equation to 5x plus 9y. But remember, I multiplied it here. I've got to multiply my next one also, move it 2 places as well. So I'm going to go 113,000. I'm going to add 2 zeros, so that changes it to $113,000. Now I have my 2 equations that I'm working with. I'm going to work with this one and this one. So I can either choose substitution or elimination to go ahead and solve. And so let's go ahead and say that I wanted to go ahead and use elimination on this one again. So I would take, then I need to eliminate my x's or my y's. So I'm going to multiply either by -5 or -9. So let's go ahead and just multiply this times a -5 so my x's cancel. So I'm going to have a minus 5x minus 5y. But remember, I have to take the 17,000 also, 1, 2, 3, times 5 as well, or -5. So it'll be a negative 885,000. Sorry, not 800, 85,000. And then I'm going to also have my second equation, which is going to be 5x plus 9y is going to equal to 113,000. Now to solve, that means I'm going to go ahead and add up my two equations. My x's should cancel. -5 plus 9 would be 4y is equal to, then I have the 85,000, so I'm going to go 113,000, and I'm going to subtract then my 85,000. Oh, you're not seeing my calculator. Sorry about that. And then I end up with then $28,000. And the last step, then I would divide both sides by 4. So 28,000 divided by 4, that means that y is going to equal 7,000. If y is equal to 7,000 and they have to add up to 17,000, then I know that my x is going to equal then 10,000, or I would have x plus 7,000 is equal to 17,000, and then I subtract my 7,000 from both sides. So I have, and the x is going to equal then 10,000. And I would put dollars and dollars, and then I would also want to identify on which one. So like when I do a test, I would want to go amount at y is 9%, and this is going to be the amount at 5%. The next problem says, suppose that the average yearly salary of an individual whose final degree is a master's is going to be $45,000 less than twice that of the individual whose final degree is going to be a bachelor. Combine two people with each of these educational attainments is going to be $120,000. Find the average yearly salary for the individual with each of the final degrees. So let's go ahead and identify each. That's going to be our variable. Our variable is going to be x is going to be that with a bachelor's, and then let's let y equal that with a master's. So then when I go through, since they're going to combine, this is one of my equations, combined, the two people with each of these educational degrees is going to be $120,000. That means my bachelor's plus my master's is going to have to equal 120. So I'm going to go x plus y is equal to 120,000. That's one of my equations. My second equation is up right here. It says 45,000 less than twice the individual with a bachelor's. Okay, so the final degree with a master's, so that's going to be x. And then I have the word is, so I'm going to replace that with equals. So I'm going to start off with, I'm just going to rewrite this statement here as an algebraic expression. So x is equals 45,000 less than twice that of a bachelor's, which we are going to say, whoops, I'm going to say this is going to be y. Sorry. My y was my master's, and my bachelor's is my x. And so y equals then 45,000 less than twice that of a bachelor's. So I have, when I see the word than, I know that I'm going to put that 45,000, it's less than, I'm subtracting it, but than means it's going to go behind it. So I'm going to start off with twice that of a bachelor's, which is 2x minus 45,000. Now, in this case, this one is my second equation, and it's already solved for one of my variables. So that means that all I need to do is go ahead and substitute it back into my equation. So if I have x, I'm going to rewrite it, plus y is equal to 120,000, which was my first equation, and I substitute the y for what it's equal to here, then I'm going to replace that. So x plus 2 minus 45,000 is going to equal 120,000. And so I end up with 3x. I know that I'm going to move my 45 to the other side, so that means I'm going to add 45,000 to both sides. So I have 3x equals then $165,000. So then the last step is I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So x is going to equal then be 55,000. Let's double check. So 165, 1, 2, 3, divided by 3 is 55,000. And then I know my 2 add up to 120,000. So 120,000 minus the 55,000 is going to be equal to 65,000. And then I would go ahead and write my units, and then I would have x was going to be for my bachelor's, and then y would be for my master's. The second type of problem, it says a transponder for a toll bridge is $45.50, and with the transponder, the toll was $4 each time you cross the bridge, and the only other option is by a toll gate, for which is going to be the toll is $6.25 each time you cross the bridge, with an additional administration fee of $2.25 for each crossing. How many times would you have to cross the bridge for the cost of the two to equal the same? So in the first one, the transponder costs $49.50. And then for each time you with that transponder, you're gonna be charged $4 for every time you cross. So x is going to have to equal the number of times you cross. And so if I look for the transponder, TRANSPONDER, then I'm going to have a flat fee of $49.50, but I'm going to have to multiply $4 every time I cross. Well, if I'm going to cross X number of times, it's going to be 4X plus $49.50. If I look on the next one, it says the only other option is a toll by plate. So let me go toll by plate. And that one is going to be for each toll is going to be $6.25 every time you cross, with an administrative fee of $2.25. So I'm going to multiply the $6.25 times the number of times I cross, but then I have then the $2.25 that I'm adding. Now, they're wanting to find out when are these going to be the same. In other words, you're going to set then these two amounts equal to each other. So I'm going to set up 4x plus $49.50 is going to equal then $6.25, or $6.25 times x plus the $2.25. And then I'm going to simply solve for x. So I'm going to start off by moving my 4x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract the 4x as 4.00x, I guess. So I'm left with then $2.25 x, 25 is equal to 49. And then I'm going to take then the 49.50 minus the 225, 2.25, and that will give me then $47.25 is equal to 2.25x, and then I'm going to divide it by 2.25. So that means x is going to equal then 21 times. So I'll actually have to do it 21 times before it actually is equal to the same. The next problem, it says, including an 8% sales tax and in charges $141.48 per night. Find the inn's nightly cost before the tax is added. So in other words, let's let X equal the nightly charge. So I know that if I'm going to add up, when I go in and pay for a room, I'm going to have that amount, which is going to be X. But then I'm going to have my 8% sales tax added onto it. Well, to find that, they're going to multiply the 0.08 times your nightly rate, which would be then 0.08 times X. And then that's going to equal the $141.48. And that's where, when we add these together, that is actually just 1.08 times X is equal to 141.48. And so to solve 141.48 divided by 1.08 leaves me with X to equal $131. So I'm going to be charged then $131 per night for the room with the 8% sales tax. Now, the other types of problems that you're going to have will be applying some of the common formulas that we have for area and perimeter of different type of shapes. And so when we do this, this can be your guide, kind of a review for your shapes. The first one says the length of a new rectangular playing field is 6 yards longer than double its width. So let's go ahead and just do I know I'm going to do a rectangle. And I'm going to go ahead and mark my length and my width. And so in this case, if I can use L and W like they've done here, but I'm also going to go ahead and adjust this one, because on this one, if I have my length, which is L is going to equal, so it's equal 6 yards longer than double its width. So that means that 2 times its width, and then plus 6 would be my length. And so again, my W is going to be then my W. So W is going to be my width. 2W plus 6 is going to be my length. And it says that the perimeter is going to be 324 yards. Now going back up, my perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And so I can now replace this one. If I know an amount for my perimeter, I can replace that with P. So it's 324 is going to equal 2 times my length. Remember, my length is actually going to be then 2W. So I have 2 times 2W plus 6 plus 2 times my width, so plus 2W, and then I can just solve for W. So by distributing, I would have 4W plus 12 plus 2W is equal to 324. And then I'm going to go ahead and 4W plus 2W is going to be 6W, but I'm going to go ahead and subtract my 12 from both sides. So I have 324 minus 12 is 312. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So my width is going to equal then 52. If my width is 52 and my length is going to be 2 times the W plus 6, or 2 times 52 plus 6, then my length then is going to be then times 52 times 2 plus 6 is 110. And in this case, I want to go ahead and make sure that I put yards. And I'm going to say that W equals 52 yards. And so using your formulas, you can apply the same type of work we did before. The next one is a city cab charges $1.25 for a pickup fee, and then $1.50 per mile traveled. Dingo's fare for the crosstown cab ride is going to be $4.75. How far did he travel? So again, let's let X equal the distance. that's an E, traveled. Okay. Know that I'm going to be charged for my fare. It's going to be a set fee of $1.25, but then I'm going to get $1.50 per mile that's traveled. So that means I know that I'm going to multiply that times X. So I'm going to have $1.50 times X, but I'm going to have my pickup fee of $1.25. And I know my total bill is going to be then, it should equal $14.75. And then, so to solve, we're going to subtract the $14.75 minus the 1.25. So I have then $13.50 is equal to 1.5x. So then I will just divide by 1.5. So that means I traveled then 9 miles. The other types of problems that you will have in this section will be solving on a formula, solving for a particular variable. So I'm going to rewrite this as b equals 1/4 times f times m. And we're going to solve this equation for f. And so by doing that, what we want to do is go ahead and move everything over, but just keep it ambiguous. You're just going to do the same types of problems, but you're going to just leave it as variables. So in this case, if I have 1/4 times f, that means I'm going to also then multiply both sides of the equation times 4. So if I multiply times 4, that means my 4 and my 1/4 will cancel out. I'm left with f times m, or fm, equals 4b. And then the last step, if I'm going to solve for f, that means I'm multiplying it times m, that means I want to divide both sides by m. My m's will cancel out, and so f is going to equal 4b over m. In the next equation, I'm going to solve on y equals mx plus b. I'm going to solve for m. So I have y equals mx plus b. The first thing, if I'm going to solve for m, that means I want to go ahead and move over any constant, and b would be considered a constant, so I'm going to move the b to the other side. So that means I want to subtract b from both sides. Now remember, I've got to just leave it as y minus b. Now on this side canceled out, so I have equals mx. And so if I'm going to solve for m, that means I need to divide both sides by x. So my answer, I'm going to cancel out my x's, so m equals y minus b over x. On the next one, I have a equals h over u minus p, and I'm going to solve for u. If it's on the bottom part of your fraction, what you want to do is you want to multiply. You want to take this term and multiply both sides of the equation so that it's not in the denominator. So in this case, I'm going to multiply times u minus p and multiply this side times u minus p. So my u minus p's will cancel, and I'm going to have a times u minus p is equal to h. And then I want to go ahead and distribute in this so I have just one term of u. So in this case, I have au minus ap is equal to h. And then I want to go ahead and, since I'm looking for u, I'm going to move the other term to the other side. So that means I want to add AP to both sides. So I have AU equals H plus AP. And then the last step is divide both sides by A. And these will cancel. So that means, I'm going to move it up here, U equals H plus AP all over A. Now I have a lot of people tell me that I can go ahead and cancel the A's at this point, and that wouldn't be correct because I don't have an A in this term. So this is going to be your answer. Don't cancel the A's here because you cannot cancel it out of the first term, which is H. And the last one we're going to actually solve. We have W equals 2YZ plus 2YX. and we're going to solve it for y. But notice we have two y's. Okay, and so because of that, that means I want to go ahead and factor out a y from these two equations. So if I factor out a y, then what I'll have left then inside would be then 2z plus 2x is equal to w. And then to solve for y, that means I want to divide both sides by 2z plus 2x. And my z's, I always put a line through them. And so that over on this other side, I have to divide 2z plus 2x. So my answer, y equals w over 2z plus 2x. All right, good luck.